Josh, let's talk about inflation. Again, I do want to remind people, 2010 to 2020, we were all lazy about inflation. We didn't think about it. Heck, it was just, we were sailing along, having a great time. It was a decade that just inflation wasn't really a factor. But in retirement, it is going to rear its ugly head. If you think the price of things doubles approximately every 20 to 21 years, talk about inflation and why it is such a problem if you don't prepare for it.
Yeah, I think honestly, if you don't feel like inflation is a problem, just go to the grocery store, right? I think we see it sort of prevalent in all of these things. And I think a lot of times we get sort of accustomed to costs increasing, and usually it happens sort of incrementally, right? And we absorb those things over a period of time. But then when it really ramps up or it goes up just dramatically fast, I suppose, that's when you're really going to feel it. And that's when it's going to start to sting. And I think when you look at it kind of in retirement, a lot of times your expenses are fixed, right? Maybe you have a mortgage, maybe you have kind of all of these costs that are relatively level. Those prices don't fluctuate very much. Then all of a sudden they start going up, right? Like property tax is a big one. Well, that's not necessarily an inflatable thing. It goes with property values. So as those go up, it's sort of moving up like inflation. And people talk about that like insurance, So as we're working, a lot of times we're incrementally making more money. So that's going to help offset some of those, costs that are inflated over that period of time, is just the natural byproduct of wage increases. This was kind of a big reason why we saw such rampant inflation in the 1970s, is because unions were so pro in this idea of increasing wages as inflation moved up. It sort of created this byproduct of both things dramatically increasing, right? People made more and more money, so the cost of everything kept increasing and increasing to the point where finally it sort of broke the system. And so I think kind of this idea of having maybe this nest egg where we looked at things 10 years ago, trying to make this determination, is it sufficient to last the next 20 years? I think you're going to have some dramatically different outcomes, because what was once considered, a comfortable lifestyle to, an income to sort of accommodate that isn't going to really be up to par now, simply because the costs have gone up so much. So when you're retired and your income is fixed, even just modest increases kind of across the board is really going to start to feel like pressure in terms of what your overall budget is.
Well, it's funny. We were in with a client. This was several weeks ago, and I actually wrote this down because I thought it was so profound. We were talking about inflation, and she said, when you're working, inflation is frustrating, but when you're retired, inflation becomes personal. And I was like, tell me more about that. Like, what do you mean by that? And she just said, when you're in your working years, you've got that possibility of raises and bonuses and just making more money. But when you're in retirement, income feels more fixed. And so it feels, and again, this was somebody that we were just starting planning with, right? And so it feels more fixed, and it feels just more personal. And again, this is where it comes back to having a plan of like, you shouldn't live on a fixed income in retirement. We want to make sure that you're taking those inflation bumps. But it was just fascinating to hear that, how the distinction of how different it is when you are in retirement. And like, you're not just automatically getting these raises. Like, you really have to plan for that, and that affects your portfolio. So I don't know. I thought that was a profound, like, wow, I like that.
Sounds like she was going to put on her boxing gloves and take on inflation.
It's getting personal.
Exactly. It's personal.
Yeah.
So, Alicia, talk about why it's good to have a mix of things to attack things like inflation in retirement, to help us give some sense of protection.
Right, because diversification is going to be key. I mean, I think that you have to look at, all the different areas of what's happening with your plan, whether it's, if you have a pension, Social Security, all the different things. Where are you getting your income from? And then what is your income gap? So, again, we like to kind of look at what's your paycheck? What is it that you need to have every single month, no matter what, kind of come hell or high water? And then what does it look like from a lifestyle standpoint? So that's your play check, if you will. And so when we look at those things and we say, what is your fixed income? And then what is your other income that might be changing? And that's where we really look at how diversified are you from, not only your portfolio, but from your income standpoint as well. And I think that sometimes people, especially right now, have gotten so used to just making lots of money in the market. And I think that is almost like a place of complacency. I mean, there's also some people that are like wildly fearful right now because they recognize, holy moly, we've been making great money in the market, and how long is this going to go on for? But for the most part, a lot of people are more geared towards, well, the market's been making me lots of money. And that's not always a great place to be when you're in retirement, because then you're really relying on the market to continue to do that. Where we look at that is, hey, let's make sure that we are very, very diversified in retirement so that we're not relying on that. And so ultimately, again, beat a dead horse, right? It all comes back to a plan. It all comes back to strategy. And it also really does come back to flexibility. This I can't stress enough in retirement. There needs to be the flexibility with that plan, but you need to have a true balance between protection and growth, between stability and flexibility.
Again, if you're in Greeley, in Fort Collins, in Windsor, in Loveland, Alicia, Josh, and the team would love to sit down with you and start the conversation. Do you have a plan? If the answer to that is no, and you're over the age of 55, what in the heck are you waiting on? If you're a Gen Xer, get your tail in here. There's no reason to not start planning. If you're over 60 and you don't have a plan, you're like my siblings. They're the end of the baby boom generation. 970-446-1234. Don't wait another minute. 970-446-1234. Josh, there's a lot of problems and it can feel overwhelming. Taxes, inflation, managing your investments, all of these things don't outlive your savings. And people then get locked up. What should people look for when they're choosing a team like yourselves to work through? Because this is going to be a relationship that lasts, hopefully, the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I think kind of the key aspect of that is relationship, right? You want to work with like-minded people who are going to have your best interests in mind. And I think, a lot of times people, the main reason why somebody meet with a financial advisor is, can you better my situation? And I think the number one resounding answer is, yeah, of course I can. I'm great. Just ask me, right? And that's good and well and all, but I think it doesn't sort of address all of these things that we need. And more often than not, when people meet with, an investment person, they're very centric on the investments, which is important. Don't get me wrong, but you want to make sure that you're working with somebody who's looking at all of those other things like tax liability, Social Security. How are we combating inflation? How are we diversifying your portfolio? How are we creating income? Really looking at kind of having that well-rounded plan, to make sure that you're addressing all of those things as you go through retirement. But you also want to make sure that you're working with somebody who's going to be operating in your best interest and making sure that, they're really in line with your goals and your objectives. And I think a big reason why we shine in that department is because we value that relationship aspect. We sit down, we get to know you, we understand what drives you not only as an investor, but as an individual. And then we take all of those characteristics and we apply that to your portfolio and then make sure we address all of those things in a fashion that you would want them to be addressed.
Thought he was going to give me his Ron Burgundy. My den smells of rich mahogany, and I have many leather-bound books. Yes.
Oh my
Works
gosh.
60% of the time, every time.
Every time.
I was
All right,
just thinking
Alicia,
the other day,
we-
I haven't let the kids watch that movie yet. Maybe it's not
Probably
quite
good-
appropriate
good
enough.
reason.
Probably not yet.
So, not yet.
Not yet. We got about a minute left in this segment. Alicia, make the pitch on just why coming in and sitting down, because again, it's a team at Lehman Lewis, and there's a lot of people who are going to help you. As I talked about earlier, put their oars in the water and start rowing that boat with you.
Absolutely. I mean, this is truly why we exist, right? Is to help people through retirement. And I think a lot of times people have done such a great job saving and just putting their money away and being disciplined and all of that, but they've never really had anybody sit down and help them connect all the pieces. And when you're in retirement, approaching retirement, investing is different. Having a true plan is the most important thing ever. And it's not just about what investments should you be in. That is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more to retirement planning than that. And that's where our team of advisors want to come beside you and build that plan for you and with you and help navigate through retirement. And also bring in the other professionals. If you have a tax advisor or CPA, we want to be able to team up with them. And same with your estate planning attorney. We want to be able to team up with them because this is not a compartmentalized plan. All of this needs to be pieced together properly and in the best tax efficient strategy. All the different strategies need to be combined and working for you so that you can live that retirement that you deserve to live. This is what you work so hard for. So that's what we do here. And we'd love to sit down, get to know you, see if we might be able to help you.
Learn more about the Lehman Lewis team. You can go to the web. It's lehmanlewis.com. And it's a beautiful website.
It is.
lehmanlewis.com. We'll continue with more Retire Colorado right after this.